Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Meet Kevin Show. Today we've got Ross Gerber back. Welcome back, Ross. It's super exciting to have you. I'm excited to talk about the market. We'll talk about California, inflation. Oh my gosh, inflation's starting to cool now are the headlines. Does that mean Ross was right? Why don't we start with that, Ross? What's going on, man?
It's funny because I have this client who just was insisting that runaway inflation is coming back like the 70s again. And he's an older guy. And I was like, this isn't going to happen, man. Like you comparing America today to the early 70s it has no value. There were so many things that were different. But one of the reasons I'm not that concerned about inflation is when you really see what's happening with Delta variant and its effect on the economy, it acts like a rate hike because it slows down people's desire to spend money and other things. And so we've had this like rush of everybody staying home and needing toilet paper to now rush to everybody going out and wanting to fly and rent cars and buy cars and all these costs that come from when everybody does everything at the same time. But that isn't really a normal economy. And what's going to happen over the next 12 months is a normalization of the way that we live. And it's not going to be at the same pace that we're seeing now in the economy. It'll be a lower pace, but it'll still be a good pace. And so inflation is just not the issue that I think is relevant to investors today compared to really looking what's going to happen now, because we've made a big shift away from being super bullish on the reopening trade to now being much more cautious on that and moving back into the healthcare tech trade. And so we've had a lot of shifting this month. So inflation is last on my list of worries with the bond at 1.35 and where's it going to go?
Kidding. Do you think that's why we've seen Moderna skyrocket? I mean, look, I like Moderna. I own some Moderna. I think it's a great company. I don't think it's worth where it's trading now. It almost feels like it's done like an AMC, like momentum, like run up. What's your take on that?
Well, I think that Moderna is a top holding of our fund, GK, as well as it's a smaller holding in our firm, actually.
Well, congratulations to you guys.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Yeah. It was sad you couldn't get out to New York to witness this
I would have loved to ring that bell.
You would have loved this stuff. It was super fun. The fund's been great. We came out the gate strong. So we're, I think as of today, we're beating the S&P, we're beating ARK, we're beating Buzz, and we're beating our index. So, I think we're in the top, 5% of funds that exists since we started about 6 weeks ago. So it's a short-term, track record, but one that I'm happy with so far, and we've had to make shifts in the fund more than I expected because of this change with COVID,
Tell me about that. Yeah, because I mean, you've got this incredible move here. So this is ticker symbol GK. So if somebody wanted to, and this is not sponsored, I want to be clear about that.
No.
Not getting paid to say this. But so in other words, this is your fund. It's GK. So it's an ETF, just like an ARK K or whatever. Obviously, the chart looks beautiful since your launch here, unlike many companies that start out or IPO or DPO or whatever. And you said you've had to make some changes. Tell me about those.
Well, when we started, the fund had two major holdings were Disney and MGM. Disney just reported after the close a good quarter. What we're worried about is moving forward with the theaters and the theme parks and everything. And those were major positions for us, especially Vegas. Like I was super, super bullish on Vegas. And in the last 30 days, I canceled my trip to Vegas, and I just don't think it's wise, to go party in Vegas right now. And so it's like, if I'm not willing to do something, well, just because other people are willing to do it, doesn't mean that that's the business model that's going to grow like crazy, like I expected. So I think conventions are impacted. I'm in the entertainment business too. So we've seen shows canceling now. We've seen major artists like Stevie Nicks are not going to perform at Bottle Rock as a headliner. That's a huge blow to Bottle Rock. One of the funner shows. New Orleans Blues and Jazz Festival was canceled again. One of my favorite shows to go to. It's really hard to be an artist right now. So if you imagine shows in Vegas and all the entertainment and all the money that's generated that they were just really getting back is now going to be impacted by either people's behavior change and or actual legal changes in what we can and can't do. It's not the same investment that I was thinking about 6 weeks ago. And so I had to lighten it. I haven't sold those positions 100%, but I lightened our exposure to reopening plays. I think the best days are behind the reopening plays until either we reach herd immunity with Delta, which may be sooner than later, but I suspect from the attitudes of many Americans that this is going to take longer than we'd like. So people who aren't vaccinated are very, very bad for the stock market.
So now, the FDA approval is expected within the next few weeks on the vaccines. Pfizer, Moderna. We're expecting maybe even talk about an FDA-approved booster shot coming out in the next few weeks. Do you think these could be big catalysts potentially for the stay-at-homes?
So going back, that was kind of the switch. We sold some MGM and bought Moderna, which paid off really nicely right off the bat. So Moderna, you got to look at differently. So our premise with healthcare now is that COVID and diseases, variants of COVID, will be with us for years to come. And because Americans have chosen not to work together to solve this like we have with previous diseases, I expect this to be several years of fighting COVID one way or another. Now, it's not a deadly disease for people who are vaccinated. For most people who are vaccinated, the almost infinitesimal chance of dying if you're vaccinated. So the sooner we vaccinate everybody, the better. But what we have found, and what I suspected from the beginning, is the Moderna is the best of the vaccines. It's the best against the Delta variant. It's the best against any variant. And the only thing holding Moderna back is simply a lack of supply. Like, they can only make so many vaccines a year, and all of that is already accounted for. So they're already buying it. But where Moderna gets interesting is if you believe that mRNA is a game-changing technology that's now been proven in scale that it can work, that we're going to all be getting booster shots every year for the next 3 years. And my assumption is these booster shots are going to be variant shots that include a flu and other respiratory diseases included in these shots. And essentially, we're going to get this all-in-one vaccine shot once a year from Moderna or BioNTech. And this is going to go on for years. Now, when you extrapolate out that every human in the earth needs to either get COVID or a vaccine, and most of the major industrialized countries have completely botched vaccine distribution, like Japan, for example. Japan is an embarrassment to industrialized nations. It's an embarrassment that the Japanese people have allowed their government to be so negligent in getting them access to the vaccine. And now the virus is surging in Tokyo as expected post the games, and people don't have the vaccine even in Japan. So when you think about the demand for something, and there's 6-7 billion people on the earth that need a vaccine, and there's maybe 10% of people who've gotten it, Moderna could make money forever.
Wow. Yeah, that's actually really interesting. This idea of maybe potentially tying the COVID shot into just your general flu shot that you just get every single year. Here's your regular shot.
COVID is the flu. It's a very similar profile to the flu. It's not that different, other than it's transmissible through the air. That's one of the biggest difference, and that it's very deadly to people because we never had gotten it before.
Right.
Okay. So what makes COVID deadly is that your body doesn't know how to fight it, and everybody's body reacts differently to it. And that's why certain people die and certain people feel nothing, and you don't know which one you're going to be, I'd like to believe I'm the guy that has the asymptomatic, right. But you could be the guy that ends up in the hospital with respiratory problems for the rest of your life too. And it's not a gamble that's worth taking. So for me, the vaccine is completely harmless. It works. Why wouldn't you take it? I'll take another one tomorrow if it's going to work. I don't care.
So why do you think that Moderna is running the way it is and Pfizer is not?
Pfizer is really BioNTech. Pfizer is really the partner that sells it. They're doing a great job too. And I own a little bit of BioNTech, and they are also working on similar things as Moderna. So I like that company too. But I think Moderna has made a better vaccine. And I think that the people involved with Moderna are, they're the same at both companies. They're both very, very, very smart. And I look at this as the future of technology. So look at tech this way. I'm a tech investor by nature. So I had a really long interview with the Wall Street Journal today talking about battery technology. And I was talking about how when we think about tech now, we think about Facebook and Microsoft and Apple, okay, and the cloud and chips. But really what tech is moving forward in this next decade, the way we're investing at my firm and in my fund, is that tech is really about battery technology and climate tech and health tech or biotech. And this is where technology is going to have tremendous disruptive change for the better. And we're just, I think, scratching the surface with COVID, because when we get to cancer, because in theory, when we get to cancer, why can't this work on cancer? It seems logical that reprogramming cells could potentially work for many cancers, especially the ones that aren't very aggressive. And you start thinking about, I could get sick with cancer and have my blood sequence, the cancer sequence, have an mRNA medicine made for me that will fight my cancer. Right. Now I shoot it into me, and now the cancer is fought and killed, versus chemo and all the other surgeries that are today. Boy, Moderna, BioNTech, this technology has huge upside potential. So that's where the valuation stuff is very hard to gauge, because you could say Moderna is super expensive, or you could say Moderna is the next Microsoft.
Right. I mean, that's a very good point. I mean, just the technology of the messenger RNA is insane. But how do you compare the mRNAs to, not to be confused with the ticker symbol, because they got a great ticker symbol. How do you compare these messenger RNAs to like CRISPR Therapeutics or the Invitaes and these genomic sequencers and editors?
So this is a different side of the same coin. So we're long Illumina and TMO, who are also involved with genetics and machines and sequencing. And there's a company I'm watching very closely called Twist, which does, they kind of collect all the genetic data and stuff like that. Twist Biosciences, also holding an ARC. And so CRISPR is about editing your genetics and changing your genetics in a way to fight diseases and other issues. And the upside to CRISPR is it has this enormous potential.
Right.
Boy, if I can edit genes, I could just take out the bad stuff. The downside to CRISPR is it's so experimental, we're not sure of the side effects of changing our genetics. So I'm a big believer that for every action, there's a reaction in science, just like in life. And so if I edit life or a gene, maybe there is some sort of reaction that's negative to it too. And that's the part I think will take years to figure out. So I think the potential of this science is amazing, like CRISPR and all that. But I'm just not, from a profitability standpoint, I'm not sure how I make money from it.
Right. That's interesting. So that got you
versus
into
selling, versus selling 1 billion vaccines a year at $20. That's a good business.
No kidding. I mean, so you think that's why Moderna's had this incredible run up, is because it's not just now the COVID vaccine, but it's also potentially it's the boosters, and it's also, hey, now this technology, we know it works. It's going to work for other things as well. That could be anything.
Not anything, but things that are cellular type issues, like cancer. Like cancer is one of the costliest, most common diseases in the world. And there's many cancers. So if you just think about addressing a handful of them, even the easier ones like prostate cancer, for example, which is very common, or breast cancer, where you have these tumors and they're pretty common among men and women. They're very common. And many of the treatments have changed dramatically over the years to be less invasive. Boy, if I could just get a shot and fight my prostate cancer, it's a game changer. What's the market for this? And that's why I think it's so hard to value Moderna, BioNTech, or NVIDIA, or Tesla, is because we're not sure how good the technology will be over time. And we know it'll be good or great, but we're just not sure how profitable it will be, but it could be wildly profitable.
So how are you playing the battery game? So you talked to the Wall Street Journal, you said today. The Wall Street Journal's great. They could do some great investigative stuff. One of the big things we're seeing right now is that a lot of the big papers are reporting on the fact that our battery needs are exponential, and they are growing exponentially. And our battery production projections are linear, and that basically we're going to run out of batteries.
We're out of batteries.
We're already out of batteries. All right, there you go. So what do we do? Where do we invest?
Well, I realized this problem a year ago when I was at Battery Day, and
Tesla
when I was at Battery, what?
At Tesla Battery Day, you
yeah,
realized.
Tesla Battery Day. You know, why not learn from the master himself, Mr. Battery Elon Musk? So I'm there, and Elon gave me front row center. You know, it was really nice of him, and I asked the question of, like, if Tesla succeeds at everything it does over the next decade, will this have any measurable impact on climate? And I think he avoided the question because the answer was basically no, that the purpose of Tesla is to get everybody else to go in this direction, not that Tesla is going to solve climate. But if Tesla can force all the car companies and all the energy companies to go to renewable energy and EVs, well, then they'll have a measurable impact on climate. So I said, you know, well, what's holding everything back? And it's batteries. Okay. Yeah. Because solar and wind and all these great renewable sources work twice as good with batteries. And so what we started researching with some experts in this area was, like, what's holding this back? You know, like, how hard is it to make a battery? Well, it turns out it's really hard. And we've been using technology that's 75 years old, and current cell is made, it is, you know, it's like a finger, and it looks like a AAA battery, basically. It's like what a battery cell looks like, you know? And so it's a little longer, and it, you know, and a battery has a plus and a minus, you know, and there's a bunch of chemicals inside, and that reaction is what makes the battery work. And what a Tesla is, or what any EV is like all these batteries, like, stacked up in a row. Okay. And they're all connected into this thing, and then it connects to the motor. Okay. So the technology itself is pretty rudimentary. The challenge is, well, how do I get all these battery cells to work together without exploding? Or if something goes wrong, or if there's water, or if I crash it, you know, like, how do I get this stuff not to explode and to be stable and to be able to recharge quickly, you know, so charging speed, you know? So, like, this reaction in a battery, it's a positive negative reaction, creates the energy. And so Elon was like, we're never going to get there with the current cells that we have, because we got three companies essentially that make most battery cells. One's in China, one's in Korea, and one's in Japan. And these three companies basically have always made all the battery cells. There hasn't been huge demand increases for battery cells ever. So Tesla comes around, starts Giga Nevada with Panasonic. It's a money loser for Panasonic for years. They say this sucks. We hate this business. And then all of a sudden Tesla scales Model 3. And now Panasonic loves the business, right? Now they're making money. Now they're like, wow, this is great. Actually, we can make lots of battery cells and make money now that Tesla's selling 500,000, now 800,000 cars a year. Okay. Nobody else sells any level of EVs worth talking about except BYD in China.
Sure.
Okay. So no other EV company even sells 100,000 EVs a year. Okay. No. So most companies, like the Chevy Bolt, is happy to do 2,000 or 3,000 a month. So maybe 25,000 a year. So most companies are stuck at 25 or 50,000 a year production. And that's because of battery cells and battery technology. So Tesla's upgraded the whole thing with this new battery cell. And it's super challenging what they're doing. They rebuilt the battery a completely different way. Different chemicals, different reaction. It looks much more like your fist. And these fist batteries cells are like 7 times more powerful than the current ones. And so that's what they're trying to do right now. So they're trying to put this in right now. So next year, for semi-trucks, cheaper vehicles, these new cells will be the secret to super powered trucks and also much cheaper vehicles. And that innovation, which we're waiting to see work and scale, is probably one of the most valuable things about Tesla.
Did your new Tesla S come with the 4680s, or are they still using the old stuff?
They're still using the old stuff. I'm pretty sure it's all the old stuff.
What's with the delay? What takes so long to scale this the new battery
cell? Yeah, this was my conversation this morning. I'm not an expert in these things. I'm a investor who is learning a lot about how all this chemistry works. But here's the thing about batteries. Okay, so it's like you take these chemicals, or not chemicals, you take metals, and everything has to be perfect in the process. The humidity has to be right. The air temperature has to be a certain. So they're sealed rooms if dust gets in there or anything. So just the process of making cells has to be done perfectly. Every environment of it. If a human touches the lithium with their fingers, the residue ruins it. You see what I'm saying? So you wear like a spacesuit when you're making battery cells and stuff. So it's like a bunch of guys and gals in spacesuits working with highly potentially explosive metals to get into this little tin can, right? That will then be stable. So it's really hard. It's just really hard, So like when you think about manufacturing like a truck, that's like metal. What it's not going to just explode on the general assembly line. There's no explosive materials. But when you're dealing with battery technology and scaling manufacture of these metals and potentially explosive materials, one mistake is fatal.
Yes. So I mean, really, is Tesla then potentially doing something that nobody else is really focused on right now, or maybe they are focused on it, but do you think they just might be first in the pack? I mean, is GM going to have a battery? Is Ford going to have a battery? Is the CAT in China, are they going to come up with that first pseudo solid state battery that NIO says they're going to have in 2022, or are these all pipe dreams?
Well, no, I mean, like solid state, which Volkswagen and QuantumScape are working on, and certainly people in China are working on, is a legitimate technology that will probably be available in the next 5 years. But the problem with solid state is really, by the time that's ready, Tesla will be that much even better with the regular cells. So why would I even need it? Because in 5 years, what Tesla's going to be doing is going to be better than solid state. So like when you think 5 years out with technology, what if I'm like, oh, my 5-year plan is this, like it doesn't matter because technology is moving so fast. Whatever you do today is going to be old in 5 years. And so whatever you're thinking today has no relevance to 5 years from now,
I see.
Like from an investment perspective. So what I think it is that Tesla is the leader in battery technology, and the other players are going to profit greatly off the scaling of the old battery technology, which the demand will be off the charts between Ford, GM, Volkswagen, Rivian, and everybody else. So the real question is how quickly can other companies scale their battery production? Ford's working on a plant with SK Innovation, Volkswagen working on a plant as well. This great company that's not public is called Northvolt in Denmark, I think it is. They have a wonderful battery and cell company there. I was just looking at another one that's a SPAC, got hammered today. So when you think about it, if you're in the business and you're good at making battery cells and battery packs, that's going to be a great business over the next 5-10 years.
For your fund, or how much have you been looking at SPACs? I mean, the last 4 months, it seems like the best move has been shorting any SPAC. It's just, if it's got SPAC associated with it, just short it.
So I don't look at SPACs within the context of like, oh, it's a SPAC. I look at companies, So whether it's a SPAC or not a SPAC, you got to look at the company. And one of the issues that all the SPACs are facing is dilution. See, if it's kind of like the AMC thing, like you can really like a company, but if the company itself is just diluting you constantly, the stock might go up on the short term, but it's not going to go up on the long term.
Sure.
The only exception being Snapchat, which is constantly diluting people, and stock seems to go up. But they literally dilute constantly. But when you look at the way SPAC deals go down, where the SPAC sponsors make $150 million taking a company public, and this is supposed to be a cheaper way than an IPO, right? Which is a lie. And so like so much self-dealing gets done in SPACs that when the SPAC then goes public, it has this overhang of all these shares. Yeah. And that's what's hurting all the SPACs, is that there's just so many SPAC shares that they gave to themselves and to everybody else. It's like candy. So stocks can't go up if the supply of stock continues at the same amount as the demand. And what's happened is SPACs have become out of demand, but the supply of stock is still there. And until the companies themselves, like the one I like the most being Beachbodies, which I had to sell out of my fund because it wasn't performing, but I still own personally, and I do own for some clients. but I can't have these kind of like non-performers,
Wow.
in the public ETF. But I like Beachbodies, but it's a long-term investment.
Well, so let me ask you about that. What happens if you have a non-performer? Do you just get phone calls from clients that are like, "Why are we in this?" Or is there like an impatience
With
factor
stock,
that drives you out?
most clients don't pay that much attention to each stock. They just are happy they're paying me to do it, and they're like, tell me the good and the bad.
Yeah.
So they usually rely on me to tell them what's working or not working. And I have no problem telling people what's not working. It's not like I try to, hide reality. I'm not perfect, and our results speak for themselves. We've done very well for clients, and so they're happy generally. But clients call all the time. It's, the ones that pay attention and say, why do we own this stock? And it's not doing very well. And like Petco, I own Petco. Woof. It hasn't done anything. And I love Petco, and I think it's a great business, and I want to be in the pet business. Chewy's doing phenomenal. Zoetis are other two pet businesses, but Petco just went public, and the private equity firm has been selling off their stock. Too much supply of stock. Equal demand means the stock isn't going up, but eventually that stops, and we love the business. So I just explain why we own something and why I think it's good. And nobody doesn't like the pet business. Like if I explain to the client, I go, when's the last time you went to Petco and didn't spend $100? And they're like, never, never. My dog cost me like $100 a day. You know what I mean?
Oh my gosh.
All you have to do is walk around Santa Monica and you want to own Petco. I mean, it's like, no brainer. So sometimes you just have to be patient. I think that's part of the investing. And then like it'll jump like 30% on something, and people will be like, "Oh, Petco." And I was like, "Yeah, you didn't say that for 6 months we were sitting on it. Now you're up 30% and you're happy, but you have to sit on it sometimes,
So how come you didn't sit on Beachbody?
I have been sitting on Beachbodies.
Oh, okay.
I have been sitting on Beachbodies, but so I've never run an ETF before.
Yeah.
And one of the changes has been, it makes me more nervous than managing the 2 billion. I got 10 million in my ETF. I'm more nervous about than the 2 billion I manage for people, and it's not because the people don't care about returns. They do, but it's never been a public vehicle where, you have your haters who are like, he sucks. And you got all these, your lovers who say, oh, he's great. And everybody can debate every day whether I'm better than Kathy Wood or not, or,
Right.
And so like, I'm super competitive. So for all the viewers out there, if you have any doubt that I don't want to have the best ETF in the world, you're wrong. You're wrong. I want to beat Kathy silly. I did just as well as Kathy over those years, and, whatever. So, I wasn't a public vehicle. She was a public vehicle. Now she's got 40 billion and I got 2, so I'm like, maybe I should have been a public vehicle, so I'm super competitive. And so the ETF makes me nervous because I want to really have my best ideas. And that's why I took out Beachbodies, because I like the idea and I think it's a good idea, but I couldn't justify it as one of my best ideas. And so I switched it for Coinbase, and I can argue all day what the upside is for Coinbase.
Sure.
And I like Beachbodies and I love what they're doing, but I think it's going to take them a little bit of time to get their business model to where they need it to be. Sure. And that's maybe a year. So it's like a holding of mine that was always a smaller holding and still is a smaller holding, kind of like my Arcimoto position, which is bigger than Beachbodies, but it's a smaller position. It's going to take them some time, Oh, yeah. So like when Beachbodies really gets their business going, and then I'll probably add it again. But I've got to have my best ideas in the ETF. I've got to kill it in the ETF. And if it's not performing in an up market, I got to move on.
So you have 10 mil in the ETF right now. And this is basically anytime somebody just types in GK and they swipe up on it, great, they're invested. They throw another 5K, 10K, 100K into it or whatever. That's now under your management. Isn't the break even for these things like 30 to 50 mil?
Something like that. Yeah.
So your goal is to just prove yourself essentially publicly and then just grow it over time.
Well, no, like we just got access that we could actually buy the ETF. Believe it or not, my firm hasn't actually been able to buy the ETF till this week.
Oh, so, you yourself? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So all the money in it is like people on Twitter and like, I guess people who aren't my client, because all my friends are my clients and family members. So it's not them. Although I think some of them have like separate accounts at Schwab they don't tell me about. And they're like, I bought the ETF. And I go, with what? I manage all your money, you know? Oh, well, we got 20 grand in Schwab, so we did it there. So I'm pretty happy about that performance actually in the first month. To get 10 million in from Twitter is not bad at all. And now we're able to buy it. So like, I'm still finishing the legal issues. Like lawyers, I'm sure you know this, just never end. It just never ends. The bullshit they can come up with to worry about, you know? I always tell them the same answer. I tell them the same answer is that if I'm wrong, you're the winner. I have to pay you more, but you're ridiculous. You know what I mean? And so like, we're almost done. I've got to send out some stuff to all our clients, you know, fully disclosing our fees. You know, we don't want people to think we're like double charging them and this or that. You know, we're very, very open and upfront about what costs we have. We will not be incurring extra costs for our clients. We already use other ETFs and mutual funds in our portfolios for a lot of our portfolios. So we're really trying to make sure people understand we're not here to increase their fees or you know, make extra money. This is another vehicle that we've created for investors inside and outside the firm to benefit from our money management. So we're almost done. And so we've been able to start buying this week in smaller amounts. But see, it's really hard to buy an ETF actually in scale. That's another, you know.
Yeah. So what happens? I mean, like, let's say you all of a sudden came in as your own whale, and it's like, that's it. The whole $2 billion
you don't want to pay
fund.
more than NAV, right?
What?
You know, so like the ETF is a basket of stocks that has a value that you can figure out minute by minute, which is what the market makers do. But they price our ETF like a week ago, they were pricing our ETF with a 10-cent spread. Okay. So the price to buy was, let's say, was 26.10 and the price to sell was 26. And I don't like those big spreads because that's how the market makers make their money. You know, so we work with market makers, but we also work against the market makers in a lot of ways because we want the smallest spread possible for clients because it means they'll make more money versus the market maker making more money. And we all know that Robinhood doesn't give a crap about how much the market makers make, but Ross does. Okay.
How come you're all in on Robinhood?
What?
How come you're all in on Robinhood?
I'm not all in on Robinhood. I'm a much bigger fan of Coinbase, which I used to call the Robinhood of crypto, but they've gotten much better. So once we started trading the ETF this week, we've got the spread down now to 6 cents, and I hope to get it down to a few cents because it just really just benefits the participants to have a better market pricing.
Yeah, and I imagine once you get much more under management under the ETF, that'll come down to like 1 or 2 pennies over time. I mean,
it's theory, just it's based off volume. Yeah, so the bigger the ETF gets, the more volume.
Could you not, in theory, since you are managing these $2 billion at your fund, in theory, could you not liquidate that $2 billion and throw it all into GK?
Well, that would probably be a legal issue, and well, first of all, it would be like double charging everybody in a way because most of our clients are the ETF in a way. So it's like the ETF is meant to mimic the stock exposure of our clients or of our high net worth clients, basically.
I see.
So like if you come to me with 3 million, for example, I build a portfolio for you, and that's, let's say, stocks and bonds. What the ETF really is meant to be is if you take the stock portion of this portfolio and you just strip it out, that's the ETF. So it doesn't really benefit many of my clients to buy the ETF because they already have the ETF in theory, just manually and customized to them. So there's an advantage to being my client versus buying the ETF in that we customize this much more because you might be really bullish on real estate. And so we'll be overweight that where another client might not be. And so the weightings change per client, plus clients have other assets. It's every person that we work with has a different situation and different assets. And so the ETF was really a way for us to separate that out for smaller clients because many of our smaller clients come to us with, let's say, $75,000 and we just can't get the diversification. Sure. So I buy other ETFs. So I've been buying like 6 other ETFs that sort of mimic our stock exposure. So now I don't have to do that. It's such a waste of time. So I can just, so for smaller clients, I might own now our ETF and then a couple other ETFs and stocks, but now they have the full exposure that I want them to have. And so it's beneficial. For our large clients, the advantage of the ETF is the tax deferral. So ETFs are tax deferred if managed correctly. And so what that means is that if you put $1 million in my ETF, I can buy and sell stocks till I'm blue in the face and not create you taxes. And that isn't something we can do for our high net worth clients currently, unless they're in an IRA account. And the reason is ETFs have this weird tax advantage, which I didn't really fully understand. And this is why I started the ETF, was that every year I get a tax bill for my capital gains. And it's substantial because we take profits and we make money in the stock market. And with an ETF, so after the Tesla experience, we had about 150 million in profits on Tesla. And I had to cut my position down, and we created something like 30 million in taxes, or it was less. It was probably 20 million in taxes, just taxes, and all the clients will go, "Oh, why do I owe this money?" And I go, "Because remember, we had to sell some of your Tesla, and they're like, "Oh yeah." So if the same thing happened within my ETF, or if I'm Kathy with my Tesla, what I can do is then transfer that Tesla stock for other stocks, and it doesn't create a tax consequence. And you can only do this in an ETF. It's the only place, and it's awesome. So although I went through this process yesterday to figure out how to do this, and it's literally like a 3-day process, it's not simple.
What's the 3-day process to make the trade or
to transfer a stock for other stocks and avoid capital gains within an ETF is about a 2 to 3 day process, because you manually have to transfer this one position for other positions and then put it back in your fund. Sure. And it's just like this whole manual thing, but it avoids tax.
Because for people who have made very good bets on certain stocks, whether that's Tesla, Moderna, who knows, maybe it's Square, it's Etsy, who cares what it is, right? A lot of people get stuck in those positions because they're pissed about the potential of having to pay taxes. That's right. If you're saying inside of an ETF wrapper, somebody else who's managing your money can now sell and dump your Tesla and your Square or whatever that's run, rebalance it. Who cares? It takes 3 days and the price moves $20. Who cares? You just saved 50% in cap gains on your gains. Dude, come on, man. That's a no-brainer.
Yep. And that's why I started the ETF.
Now, can you do options?
And trust me, I put as much of my own money into it as I could. Wow. Because of this reason.
Yeah. Can you do options in an ETF?
No.
Oh, so you couldn't sell like covered calls inside? No. Okay. But that's just the nature of being an ETF.
ETFs are complex products. It's not anything what I thought it was. I can't even trade this thing on a computer. If you knew how Wall Street really worked, I saw this headline the other day. It was like, Wall Street's looking for workers with Excel experience. And I laughed because they all work on Excel. And I've had to relearn working on Excel. Unfortunately, I'm old enough that I know how to use Excel because, I remember what was the program before Excel? My business partner used to use, he used to use this thing before Excel. I forgot what it was called. And I'd be so pissed off. I was like, dude, you have to move to Excel. I'm not using this program anymore or whatever. So Wall Street works with Excel. So I actually trade through the ETF with spreadsheets.
Multi-plan?
No, there was some other.
All right, never mind.
There was some other spreadsheet. I think it was Lotus 1, 2, 3 or something. Yeah. I think it was Lotus. I think it was Lotus. That's what it was. Dude, I'm so fucking old.
Stop. No, you're fine.
You know what I did this morning? I'll tell you, I did this morning. I almost cried. I took my kid to tennis camp. As 2 young women were checking in the kids. They were probably 18. And they said, "What's your kid's name?" And I said, "Andre Agassi." And they looked at me and said, "There's no Andre Agassi on the list."
They didn't know who he was. At a tennis camp.
I had to be like, "No, it's Max Gerber." He used to be one of the best tennis players of all time, but you probably weren't born. It was totally
I know Andre,
an old
too.
Man making a joke that nobody thought was funny. Oh boy, it's hard being me. You know,
It must be.
I'm a 20-year-old
Okay,
in a 50-year-old body. You know, it's like, what was that movie where the guy ages backwards, you know?
Oh, Benjamin Button.
Benjamin Button. I'm aging backwards, man. I'm getting more immature and stupider. No, yeah. So Andre Agassi joke failed miserably.
Yeah.
Miserably.
So, okay. So you would put
tax deferral is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to know that. So you would have put your own money.
I put a ton of my own money into it.
Okay. Because of this tax benefit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because basically you could be a trader, but not get taxed at all almost.
Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible. Or
like
you could have somebody.
I first figured this out. They were like, well, you're big on Twitter, you know, like maybe you don't want to promote this too much because we don't want like Rashid Tlaib to figure this out and go after us, you know. Like the last thing we need is the what are those they called the
squad.
The squad, the anti-rich squad coming after you because you're publicizing that ETFs get this crazy tax rate, which is basically because of Vanguard, you know, because Vanguard got this thing in there because they're like, oh, we only trade once a quarter when we rebalance, and there shouldn't be a tax consequence when we rebalance. And that's how they got this thing. But see, like 95% of ETFs are passive investments. Sure. So think about the stupidity of this. So here you have this ability to trade stocks tax deferred, but you buy a portfolio that doesn't trade.
That's
why funny. Would you do that?
Yeah.
Like I made like a bunch of trades this month, and it's like if my Moderna goes to 1,000, I won't have to pay taxes on it.
That's nuts. That's really incredible. Well, that's fascinating. And what is it? You guys charge like it's like 0.81 or something.
0.81 I just looked it up. Fund. Yeah.
Yeah. Why didn't you go for like 0.69?
I actually went for 0.75 because I was like trying to be like everybody else. And now that you brought it up, I should have done 0.69, but it would have involved the other people giving up their cut, not me. But like the 0.81 is the 6 extra basis points are because I have the LIT and the MSOS ETF in there, and that has fees. So that's also added on as a fee. And the reason I have those exposures is because I can't get them within the United States because LIT has big exposure in foreign markets for the battery technology, like Korea and China, a lot of China. And then MSOS is all the Canadian cannabis companies that are U.S. companies that trade in Canada. And I just couldn't get that exposure any other way. So
let's talk about cannabis. So cannabis has been very interesting because here in California, cannabis was legalized 5 years ago. Yet still today, 80% of cannabis sales are illegal because the government was stupid out here.
It's inept. You want to get into politics because the government's inept.
Yeah. So what is motivating you about cannabis right now when we have these disasters? Did you know? You might not know this, but I did an interview with this CEO of a cannabis company. And I don't know. So like I don't own any of the shares. I never got paid for the interview or anything. I get subpoenaed because somebody thinks the whole company's a pump and dump. And it's just like this whole cannabis world's a mess right now. California can't figure out the legality.
You get subpoenaed if you had Trevor Milton on from Nicola too, you know? I mean, you know,
yeah, that's a good point.
You gotta watch out who your guests are in any industry, especially cannabis or crypto, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Crypto. Yes. Yes.
You know, that's in the sector of my fund called things that used to be illegal. These are illegal businesses that are now legal. Okay. So a lot of the players in these industries, as they switch, like I was talking about the casino industry, comparing it to the casino industry from the casino days of like the 60s, 70s, 80s, when the mafia ran the casinos. It was a front. And now corporations run the casinos. And it took about 20 years for that transition from illegal ownership to legal ownership and ethics to non-ethics. And we're seeing the same thing, I think, in cannabis, where many of the companies are shady and have been run out of business, or they've stole the money or whatever. And now the corporatized businesses are in. Green Thumb, the True Leaves, the TerraSens with great management, really, really established institutional investors, really good checks and balances. But if you go to a lot of the smaller companies, shady, man, just shady. So it's like, you got to be really careful. We do a lot of due diligence in cannabis. I know many of the CEOs myself and spent time, you know, a lot of time doing due diligence on these companies, because when cannabis first got legal, we liked MedMen, and when we looked into MedMen, we realized it was a totally corrupt company with so many issues, and we were right. And the stock got hammered, and they're about to go out of business.
Yeah. What cute? Like, what was your red flag? When the paperwork?
Yeah, it's when you have a CEO just starting to steal money left and right. Like giving themselves $10 million bonuses. The AMC CEO did that too, which I thought was super shady. Just things are going well today, so I'm going to take a $10 million bonus.
Sure.
It's like, why? It's like you own the stock. Like, what's the advantage of this $10 million bonus? You already make $3 million a year, And so I always really question self-dealing in companies. Like I run a company. I guess I could just give myself bonuses as long as people don't find out. But when they find out, what happens to your credibility? And so this guy, Adam Bierman, was running MedMen at the time. And when I saw what he was doing, I was like, this is shady. And then I talked to my friends and I talked to people in the industry. And I had a friend who's pretty deep in the cannabis industry. I said, what do you think of these guys? And he said, they're fucking crooks.
Wow. Wow.
And so this is the part of the research I do that many companies don't do, which is really digging into the CEO, like people who know him.
No, that's smart. Yeah, I mean, you're right. Yeah, there was this near $10 million bonus package in February here for corporate associates at AMC, like 8.3 or something like that.
And then we looked at the money they were spending on like marketing and merch and branding, and I was like, these guys are going to blow this thing up. And we just
interesting. What do you think about so you've got cannabis, but what about like the psychedelics, like mind medicine and things like that?
Yeah, I looked at mind medicine and I like psychedelics in general.
Yeah,
more for
like physically.
I haven't done them in a long time, and I bought some of this. I got some of this stuff to try because I'm looking at these companies. And I typically use all the products and try products and this and that, but I haven't tripped in a long time, so it's still sitting on my drawer, and the packaging and the product is already like super, super advanced. But what I think is that the legalization process just with cannabis has been a long and painful process, which I think has tremendous upside. But the psychoanalyst business of psychedelics is not even close to as big of a business as cannabis. And so even on the best day, this would still be a niche. And so I just think it's way too early, and I don't see it. I see it being a great thing maybe for people, but maybe not as great for profits. And so I'm all in on cannabis, and I think that's the next big thing. And hopefully they can get something through this divided Congress somehow that will benefit everybody, especially social equity, decriminalization, and taking off Schedule 1. So that's where I'm focused, because I think there's tons of upside.
You're optimistic. I mean, you've got almost as much in the MSOS, the cannabis play, as you do in Tesla in your GK fund. You actually have more in them than you do in NVIDIA, which you had briefly mentioned earlier, or Moderna, or more than them as well. And you're optimistic about Biden and this Congress getting it through, like between now and 2022, do you think?
So MSOS is probably 20 companies, let's say 10 for round numbers. So we look at ETF as like buying 10 stocks. So none of the individual positions there would even be in the top 40, you know? So if I was able to buy those stocks individually, I would own probably 4 of the companies in that fund much more heavily, and it would equal the same allocation, but they would all be like 1% allocations, like Green Thumb and True Leave and TerraSend and Planet 13. So I own them separately in individual accounts where I can buy those. I can't even buy half those stocks in some of the companies. I can buy them at Schwab. I can't buy them here. It's a nightmare dealing with these MSOs because of the legality. But what I think is that Congress has got to deal with this reconciliation and the infrastructure bill, which is going to be brutal. And then we get to social equity and cannabis, and can we pass something? So we need Republicans to be on board. And fortunately, there are Republicans on board. And the reason is money. The one thing that I can guarantee you about politics is that money controls it. Money controls our country. If you have any doubt in any way how our system works. You're witnessing this firsthand.
Yeah.
Money controls politics. Okay. So there is so much money in cannabis. There will be plenty of Republicans that want to get this through because they'll be getting paid.
That's incredible. It sounds jaded, but I think you're right.
Jaded. I'm 50 years old. You tell me the year when these politicians get honest.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Tell me the year. That's why I support Kevin for governor. The number one reason is I support young people who are honest, hardworking people who want to make a difference in our system, that have great ideas. I support 100%. If I have to look at a Caitlyn Jenner or a Larry Elder or a Gavin Newsom or a Eric Garcetti, these career politicians should be shot. They should be shot. They are criminals. They are mostly criminals. I can tell you stories about LA City Council that are absurd. It's absurd. So most of these people should be shot. Okay, write it down. They're criminals and traitors to our nation. Half of them.
And you think that's just all, or maybe is it just all because of the money corruption or what?
Money. There was some Supreme Court ruling a few years back that allowed corporations to donate an unlimited amount of money to PACs. And it allowed a billionaire, for example, to create a PAC and put $100 million in himself and completely influence the election. The Mercer family, for example, was the biggest supporter of the misinformation around the Trump election several years ago. So one family, part of the Renaissance hedge fund, that was one of the most successful hedge funds in history, the Mercer family completely funded Palantir and the entire misinformation operation that was run by the Trump administration. These are wealthy people, okay? Wow. Then on the Democratic side, they have theirs. Now, the difference between the Democrats and the Republicans is the Democrats have this whole group of socialists that don't want anything to do with rich people. And this is a severe disadvantage for the Democrats. Okay, so the Democrats don't call me up begging for my support most of the time because I make too much money. Okay, and they want to win without rich people, I guess. I don't really understand the Democratic approach, and the Republicans have all moved to the racist party. So, how am I supposed to support a Republican when most of them are supporting the racist party? So, like, where does a liberal conservative person go? And there's me, Kevin, right in the middle. Stop. There's me, Kevin. And that's what you're doing. And not just you, but a whole group of young people I support who are trying to get into politics, who have middle views that represent a vast majority of people, actually, and have great new ideas. How could our country lose? Like, just having young people involved, not young radicals. I'm saying young, reasonable people. We have 80-year-olds determining policy. You wonder why we can't solve climate change. We have 80-year-olds who won't even be here to see it, deciding the policies for this country. So that's why you have to recall Gavin Newsom, not because he's done the worst job ever. He hasn't done the worst job ever. But for his background, he certainly hasn't done the best job ever. And we're sitting here with, Commander Gavin telling people who can work and not work and what's going to be open and shut and what's going to do this or that. And then he's going to the French Laundry and he's taking more money from the American Medical Association than anybody. And I'm tired of it. Wow. He's just corrupt. And so I know you well enough that I know you're not taking money from the Getty family, like Gavin Newsom. Wow. Okay. And I know that you probably didn't sleep with your best friend's wife, like Gavin Newsom, because he's a scum. Wow. He is. Just look up he was married to Kimberly Guilfoyle. Literally the worst human being in the Trump circle was Gavin's wife. Now, his new wife is very nice. I like her. He has a beautiful family. He did better the second time, and he is sober. He is sober now. So I give him credit. But the past is the past, and I don't think you can just deny it. Okay?
Wow.
But how do you think he made his money? This plump jack stuff? Who do you think set him up? The Getty family. He's the Getty family.
That's interesting.
So I figure you win. California's better off. How are we worse off?
It is interesting that it seems like a lot of people get into politics without a lot of money, and then they come out with a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well,
Uh,
you'll see when you're governor, right?
I
Everyone,
want to, and that's I don't
dude,
want to do this
everybody's going to
forever.
be your friend when you're governor.
I don't know. I mean, my thing is the last thing I want to be is a career politician. Like for me, I just want to make California something that's a place that Jack and Max can be happy in 20 years. Because right now I feel like we've derailed.
Yeah, we're killing our state. Like some of your proposals, like I'll give you an example. Like businesses leave California every day.
Yeah.
And most businesses that stay in California, like mine and LPL, for example, that chose to stay in California with thousands of employees and all the extra costs because we love California. Like literally, you make an uneconomic decision. So it's worse economically to stay in California, but we want to support the state and stay where we love. Okay. But that's the only reason to stay in California, right? Economically, it makes no sense. Okay. Rules and regulations makes no sense. Okay. So companies leave every day. They go to Nevada and they go to Texas and they go to Florida, where there's tax advantages and much more friendlier environment for employers.
Yeah.
And I say to myself, what can we do to stop this? Well, it's really simple. You have to make it a business friendly environment. Okay. Now, when you look at taxes and you look at regulation, it's a business unfriendly environment.
Oh, yeah.
So you can harp on Trump all you want because I hate Trump, but he got business that if I cut taxes and I cut regulation, business will do better. Yes.
Right.
Yes. And if you're governor, that's what you should do.
That's the first time I've
cut regulation.
Thank you for that. And that is a priority. Absolutely. That's like one of the number one priorities. It's interesting. I've never heard you say something positive about Trump, though.
I used to like Trump.
Oh,
you want to know the truth?
You mean like Apprentice days, like 2000?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are good.
When I was in my 30s, The Apprentice got big.
Oh, yeah.
And I had friends on The Apprentice. I had several friends on several seasons of The Apprentice. And there was a time I used to go to these Apprentice viewing parties with my friends who were in The Apprentice.
Wow.
And I was so happy with Trump because he made being in business cool. Now I'm this 30-year-old kid running around in my suit in LA. Why aren't you in the entertainment business, Ross? Why are you selling stocks? Da, 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 da. And here Trump comes around in his suit and he's the number one show on television and everybody's into business all of a sudden. And I was thrilled. I thought it was great, and I like Trump, like what was there not to like? He was just this flashy, he was a great hoteler. He was great at the hospitality business. He had a beauty pageant, it was like, what was there not to like about this guy? He owns a beauty pageant. He knows how to get girls, right? He just buys the pageant. And, but I think we all saw a superficial part of Trump that it was entertaining and he was a great entertainer. Yeah. And when he started in politics, he thought it was a joke too. And how he veered into being the worst human being I can think of, I don't really know how that happened. I think he lost his mind.
Wow. That's crazy. So I do want to ask you, I'm looking at GK here, NVIDIA.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to crash after the split. And they just
Why?
keep good. They just keep going. Well, because look at Tesla and Apple, just a basic recent example. Tesla, Apple, both of them dipped after the split, quite substantially. That was last year. So, things have changed since then. But NVIDIA is it's the thing that just keeps going. I mean, it was straight up from split announcement.
I don't spend much time worrying about those things like, oh, it's split, so there'll be more shares and a couple of idiots will sell a few shares and it'll weigh on the stock. There's some truth to that. I'm not discounting it, but that's not what I spend my time thinking about. What I spend my time thinking about is what's happening. Okay. You can't get computer chips. You can't get graphics chips. You can't get crypto chips. You can't get small chips for your car. You can't get chips for manufacturing. We have a horrible chip shortage, which is leading to inflation and leading to a massive investment in the chip business. And the chip companies that, like NVIDIA in particular, is literally cornered. It's like the best chip, GPU chip, in like the 4 best industries you could possibly be in at the same time. Okay. So they literally are making dumbed down versions of their chip so people won't use them for crypto because they want to make sure other people get their chip. That's how much demand. So there are gamers that I know that will buy an NVIDIA chip in a back alley like crack for $1,000. And there's dudes with like NVIDIA chips in alleyways, like making bank selling them. That's the demand. That's the demand. So
and why do you think AMD hasn't had the same success as NVIDIA?
Well, AMD's been doing well lately, and they've
been doing great too.
Better CEO now. And I used to not like AMD because they're just inferior chips. They're just not as good a chip. It's just not. And AMD was more, in my mind, closer to Intel than NVIDIA. But like when you buy a PC, do you wake up and say, I want that AMD chip? No. It's the cheap chip. It's the cheaper one. That's their angle. It was the cheaper chip. So it's like the Vizio of chips. So is it a good business? Yeah. They're doing much better now, and they have good management, and people will buy any chip right now. So we're heavily invested in the chip industry. We just bought a stock that's really interesting called ASML. ASML makes this. So I bought the stock finally because it was expensive. And, these Bally Gifford guys I follow, if you don't know who Bally Gifford is, you should figure it out because they're super smart. They were also big Tesla people with us. So when Tesla was having the hard times, there were only 4 firms that really stuck with Tesla: Bally, ARC, us, and Barron. And Bally was really pissed with Elon, and they had some quote like, "We want Elon to step down as CEO and be chief like architect or something." And then Bally made their money, and they sold half their Tesla very quickly because they were very excited to get out of that trade ahead, and they made a lot. I think they made $1 billion. They made a lot. Some of the smartest people. So ASML is a Dutch manufacturer of equipment for chips. And the equipment that they use is like the only equipment in the world that make these super, super, super high density chips. And so the crazy thing about ASML is there literally nobody else makes these chips, and they're crucial for chip development. But like the US government stepped in and won't let ASML sell to China. This is how good their equipment is. And this is why I started buying the stock, that it was actually considered a national security issue to allow China to buy these machines and to be able to keep up with chip development with the Western world. So they banned them from China. And ASML is like, we don't care because we have so much business. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And nobody else makes these chips. So ASML has business forever into the future. And it's a monopoly on a type of chip equipment that they are the only ones that make. So we added that position to ETF, and I've been slowly adding it into portfolios as well, because I think every area of the chip business is going to benefit over the next several years with the demand for technology and the demand for chips and the lack of an ability to scale supply rapidly.
I mean, it's incredible just looking at some of the market caps here. I'm just blown away. I mean, NVIDIA is almost the size, and this is actually literally blowing my mind the more I think about it now to think about it. But NVIDIA is almost the size of Tesla. NVIDIA is almost at a $500 billion market cap.
And I think we've made more money actually in NVIDIA than Tesla at my firm.
Wow.
But it was over a longer period of time.
Sure.
So I've been involved with NVIDIA since the video game days. Long ago. That's well incredible. Before all this cloud autonomous chip. Just when NVIDIA was like the graphics chip for gamers. That's when I was in. I was like, oh, these are the best chips for gamers, because I'm a gamer and I invest in gaming. And NVIDIA was like the leader. If you had an NVIDIA chip, you had the best PC gaming. And that was when I first got involved with them. It was actually at E3 at the NVIDIA booth when I met the NVIDIA people that they taught me this, and I was like, I'm getting it on NVIDIA. Now I think NVIDIA and the guy who runs NVIDIA, this guy Jensen Huang, or whatever his name is, Jensen. I hate saying these names wrong, so I'm not going to say it. And he's a genius, just like Elon. He's a genius. So we were talking about it at lunch. I have this new investment philosophy where you can look at valuations till you're blue in the face, or you can just invest with the geniuses. It's like why we bought stock in Square finally. I watched Square go up for probably 2 years. And I'm like, kicking myself. And finally, I was like, I'm buying Square. You know, like Jack Dorsey. I don't like Jack Dorsey, but I think he's a genius. He's just, there's so after I saw him and Elon talking about Bitcoin and all this stuff, and I was like, he's building such an amazing ecosystem at Square. Like, I got to own Square. I don't care what the price is. Now,
with all of these chips that you're buying up, would you buy something like Corsair? I mean, the gaming product here.
Corsair just sold. Corsair, I use their products. Yeah. I like their products. The stock's been a dog. I lost money and I sold it. I'm not sure why. And whenever I'm not sure why, I have to move on. Like, their numbers are decent, but they didn't beat. They should be beating right now.
Yeah.
Like their peripherals and the keyboard business, like Logitech. We're in Logitech, and I love the business, and they have the cameras too. And they've been doing just fine. So unfortunately, right now, it's a tough time for gaming because they had such a good year last year.
Yeah.
And everybody's forced to stay home. How do you beat that this year? It's impossible. So all the gaming companies are kind of dealing with the really tough comps, you know, and then they'll probably get going again when we get to, you know, winter. So Corsair, I'm out.
Now, so this is...
I like the company, though. I just don't.
But this earlier in the show, you mentioned there was another stock that you also sold out of because it wasn't performing. I think it was Beachbody. Yeah, it was Beachbody. And so how do you differentiate when it's time to say this isn't performing, it's time to move on, versus I just need to wait a little longer for something to come true, and then the market will realize the potential here?
A lot of it has to do with things happening in the expectations that I have.
Okay.
So, like with Corsair, I have certain expectations for the company, and they just weren't meeting it. And I really don't know why. Like, they have great products and peripherals, and I don't know. I don't know why they missed their numbers, you know? So because I own Logitech, it was sort of like duplicate, you know, exposure to the same idea, and Logitech is delivering. So delivering is part of it. Now, it's not that Beachbodies hasn't delivered, but in this case, I think that they're just dealing with the SPAC overhang, and I'm going to get back in at when the stock starts to move again. So why I'll buy some stocks and hold them, like Petco, versus some that aren't performing, and then I sell them, has most to do with conviction. You know, like Petco hasn't done anything that hasn't been in my mindset of what they should be doing. So like nothing's wrong. So the stock being down is an opportunity to buy it versus companies that maybe haven't quite met my expectation in certain levels yet. And so, like, look at it this way. You can own as many stocks as you want. Okay. So I could own 100 stocks and have every idea that I like in my portfolio.
Yeah.
And I do that in let's say, my own personal portfolio. I might have a bunch of stocks that I'm just like, I like them, but I'm not 100% convicted that I'm going to buy this for all my clients yet. And, you know, oftentimes they go down once I buy them. So I'll buy them first, and then they'll go down, and then I'll buy them for my clients. So my clients will benefit. It's, you know, kind of like Murphy's Law, like your AMC trade. It's almost a guarantee. If you say I'm going all in on the stock and you buy it, it's going to go down. You know that, right?
Yeah. So
the way you trick the market is you only buy half that day. So this is the way I do it. So the day I decide I'm going in to buy Square, I know the next day it's going to go down. Don't get me wrong. I'm almost sure. Right. So that's what I did. I bought some Square. It was really half the position, you know, and then it rallied. And I was like, wow, I got lucky today. And then it gets hammered. So I was like, no. And now I can buy the rest of it at a cheaper price. So nice. I always buy over time and I sell over time, and it makes it less painful. But if I'm trying to build a position, the stock's not really performing how I want it to, it just gets cut from the team. I can add it back to the team whenever I want. It's not a permanent decision. I think a lot of investors get caught up that every decision has to be absolute.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
I can buy and sell stocks all day. I hate Microsoft. I like Microsoft. I buy it back. I make mistakes. I sell a stock and then I go, why did I do that? And I buy it back. We all do these things. What the mistake is having too much of an ego about everything. Yeah. You know, it's like, I can't buy this back because I sold it, or I'm going to hold it until I make my money back. Well, right. You know, that might not ever happen, you know? So, you know, like if you buy a stock and it's not working for you, that's the other reason I sell So like stocks have to go up. So if the market's up 3% and your stock's not up, you actually lost money. See, I'm in a different game. I'm in the golf game, not in the absolute return game. So if it's just making money, then fine. I'm going to make you money. But if it's I got to beat the market and the market's going up and my stock isn't, even if it didn't go down, in theory, it went down because I could own the market.
Right. Opportunity cost.
So that's the way I have to play. I have to play based off what the market does.
That sounds stressful.
Welcome to my world. Welcome to my world. It's a golf. And I got to hit a better shot than the 500 companies in the S&P. And that's not easy. And most people fail. And most people think it's impossible to beat the market. Most people think nobody can beat the market. So I'm going to have to be a miracle worker, even though I've beaten the market my whole life. But I'm going to have to be a miracle worker to beat the market, according to the media.
Now, how does it make you feel that even though you've beaten the market your whole life, this is your first time being public?
Yeah, right.
Now it's kind of like crap. Can I replicate essentially what you have been doing?
That's right. And I think that's the advantage of being at my age. I looked at it the opposite.
Okay.
I've been doing this for almost 30 years and I'm not going to do it for another 30 years. Okay. I'm not going to do this when I'm 80. I'm not going to be the 80-year-old that rolls in. I'm not going to be Warren Buffett. Okay. So if you think I'm going to be doing CNBC interviews when I'm 80, that is not correct. When I'm 80, I hope you will never see me again. You know what I mean? Like,
where are you going to go?
Oh no, I'll be here, but I'll have done enough YouTube and videos and television for a lifetime. I'm sure they'll call me and be like, Ross, please come on, whatever. They'll be like the old man again, and all the kids will be like, that's old man Ross. Like, that's not my dream. That's not my dream.
Got it.
But I'm 50 now. So like, I figure I got 20 years that I'm going to actively trade stocks more. And so that's a good track record to establish, like a 20-year track record. And like really the next 10 years, I feel like I'm in my prime. So I have the most amount of experience and I have the most amount of, I would say, just between skill, talent, and experience, it's like this is the apex of it. I will not get better at this than now. Okay. Maybe I'll get better over time, but like if I'm really going to hit home runs, it's going to be this decade. And so I figured having a public vehicle, I'd finally get some recognition, if I am right, maybe they'll stop talking about Kathy Wood every day. I don't know. No, I love Kathy and I'm really proud of her. And I think she's done a great job and she deserves everything she's got. So I hope to be as good as her. You know what I mean? And that's sort of, I guess you could say, who I'm looking up to right now is what ARC and Kathy has done. So I hope to keep doing as well as I've done over the last 30 years, but past performance is not indicative of future results. It's a disclaimer we use. So I can't promise you that I will, I might not, but if I'm going to, it's going to be this decade.
Why not? I mean, it sounds like you've got some plans for when you're 80. Why not just retire now?
I've tried. I tried last month. I didn't tell anybody, but I rented a house in Laguna. I got my Arcimoto and I was cruising back and forth to the beach and I was trading stocks on my computer and I'm hanging out with old people and I'll die. You know what I love to do? I love to be with young people. I like to go out. I'm not meant to be 50 at all. Like, I'm ready to go out. I'm bummed that Delta fucked up my Vegas trip. I'm bummed that I'm not at like concerts right now, which is my favorite thing to do. Like I look at the opposite. You only got so much life and like, I want to live it. Yeah. I love my company. I love the people I work with. Like if I didn't have my company, not the business part of it, but my friends, that's like half my life. No. Like they're my friends. Maybe we don't do it traditional business all the time because they are my friends, but they are. They're my best friends, are my partners. And the new people at my company I love. And it's super fun being here. Like I make it that way. like, yeah, we got work to do and it's a stressful job. So don't be wrong, and I do yell at people sometimes when they screw up, or I wouldn't say yell at them. I can be tough. I can be tough. I don't like yelling at people. I can be tough. My wife will probably agree with that, but we're trying to be successful. And I think people get that. Like, I'm trying to make people better at what they do. And I think people get that. And sometimes you have to push people to get the best results from them. And we do, but just the same, I love what I do other than the legal compliance, accounting, human resource, almost every other part of my job I don't like, but I love what I do in my core job, which is investing and working with people. So I'm motivated by helping people. So I believe in what the Dalai Lama says, is that our whole existence on the earth is how we can serve others in a lot of ways. Like, like if it's all about serving myself, I've done a great job of that. Like I can go get a massage every day. I can have, staff bring me drinks if I want, like, I don't need all that, but like the fact that we have 8,000 clients, that like 8,000 families that we've affected in a positive manner, that makes me happy. It gives me a purpose. Every week we're signing up people. Every day we're signing up people. We're teaching people how to invest in crypto. We're teaching people how to save, getting people life insurance to protect their families. Like, we make people's lives better. I love that. And we're doing it in scale. And that's what this country and our society needs. So I feel a purpose sort of greater than myself. Yeah. And I try to infuse that in my company, that, if our whole purpose in life is just to serve ourselves and our personal desires, it's a very lonely life, actually. So, I have a vibrant family. I have lots of friends that I enjoy being with, and I love my company. And what I try to do is balance that all in a way that is healthy. And I think that the challenge is the stress. That's the challenge, because the company's big now and it's stressful. We got 41 employees. It's like, I got these compliance people calling me about every freaking thing, and I'm like, guys, like, how many lawyers can I hire just to leave me alone? But there's no way around it. We deal with crypto, it's like, you deal with an ETF, you deal with crypto, we deal with international investors, we deal, and we do everything the right way. So it takes a lot of effort, but I love my life. And I think you have to love your life right now. Like, if you wake up in the morning, and I say this to any person, and I don't care how rich or poor you are, because it doesn't matter. It's mental. Okay. If you don't love your life, make it a life you love. Make it a life you love. Nobody's forcing you to do the job you don't want to be doing. Nobody's forcing you. Now, if you want this life, you might have to stay up late working harder, or studying something, or trying to be governor. Like, how hard are you working right now? You know what I mean? Like, you're working your ass off, and I'm super proud of you. Like, super proud of you, because so many people would have fluffed this whole governor thing, and you are not at all fluffing anything. And you're trying to run your business, and you have your family. Okay. This is a hard time for you. I get it. And I respect it 1,000,000%. But hopefully you love this. Like, hopefully this is a great experience for you, good or bad, win or lose. It doesn't matter. You've already won. You've done what I hoped you would do, is you've established yourself as a legitimate candidate for governor. You are a legitimate candidate for governor, not some YouTuber. What do they call you? Some financial YouTuber. Okay. And they say it almost like it's an insult, like, you're a YouTuber. Oh, yeah. Like, oh, what a fucking YouTuber, like, that's a bad thing. So from the people on Channel 4, you know what I mean? It's like, you're a YouTuber, financial influencer on YouTube. Well, now you're a candidate for governor, and a legitimate candidate for governor. And I think that's something that your kids will look back in history and say, that's pretty cool. My dad did that, win or lose. Man. And don't tell me you're not working hard. Don't tell me you're not staying up late. So I'm going to tell you, if you want a life that you want to love, you're going to have to work harder for it. You're going to have to work harder for it, because everybody wants stuff given to them, and it just doesn't happen. I've been waiting for an easy year. I have this fantasy that one year everything goes right. Everything goes right. You ever have this fantasy? Like, imagine a year that everything just went right. I made good money. Like, nobody got sick. My friends are all fun. Everything's great. There's no corona. Like, imagine this year of just pleasure. It just was a great year. you could just look back and be like, 2014 was just a great year around I'm 50. I'm still waiting for that year.
Well, that's good. That was a really incredible motivational segment there. Thank you for that, Ross. I do have to ask you though about crypto.
Right.
I want to know, can you get are you getting a GBTC or whatever in your
we
fund?
do crypto.
You have it.
No, we work with Gemini. So at Gerber Kawasaki, we are the only RIA that you can go to, open up a direct managed Bitcoin account, just like your investment account, with Gemini and us managing it. And every day we get clients for crypto, and every day we're moving money or not money or crypto from Coinbase and other exchanges into Gemini for our clients. We're buying Bitcoin for our clients and Ethereum, and we're managing these in cold storage. We had our first hack attempt yesterday, which we subverted or
Nice.
blocked. Oh, yeah. So this is all about security and safety. Most crypto people have never done this.
Gem, though. If it's at Gemini, how would did they try to hack you guys or what?
Yeah, what happened was the client had transferred his Bitcoin to us from a wallet, I guess, and the company that managed his wallet got hacked, I guess.
Oh.
So they tried to follow the hash to our Gemini account because they saw the Bitcoin had been transferred there, and then tried to get in, and then Gemini shut it down because they saw it. So Gemini did a great job for us. It was our first time that a client of ours, they were trying to get into his Gemini account that we manage. But Gemini did a great job with security. That's been our number one focus in building this program, is safety for our clients and security, so that somebody who's never bought Bitcoin, who doesn't want to deal with the risks, can come to a firm like us, buy Bitcoin and Ethereum, and know that this is the safest way you can do it and have some protections, which doesn't exist at any Bitcoin exchange or any investment firm.
Well, what about Robinhood?
Robinhood, you don't buy Bitcoin. You buy fake Bitcoin at Robinhood. Okay. So you can't transfer your Robinhood Bitcoin anywhere. You can't use it anywhere. What you're buying is a number that Robinhood says is worth something on a piece of paper that is fake. Robinhood, everything's fake, basically. So when you buy crypto or Doge or whatever, there's no actual crypto or Doge actually changing hands. It's just on your app, it says you own it, and they just adjust the prices, and that's how it works.
Doesn't sound like you'd have Vlad over for a beer or anything.
I'd love to have Vlad over for a beer, and I'd love to ask him how he's gotten away with murder, because he actually did murder a client. He's the only guy I know who murdered a client. He's murdered a client.
I didn't know you were going in that direction. I thought you meant figuratively.
No, I just ask him. I'd be like, dude, I've been doing this for 28 years. I'm just curious. You murdered a client. How do you justify this in your head? How do you go to sleep at night knowing that the actions you took at your firm murdered someone?
Wow.
It sucks. Yeah. Do you think about that at night? There's a dead kid that you had to pay out their family millions of dollars because of you.
Yikes.
Yeah.
So now I want to zoom out for a moment. We've got, obviously, since the middle of February, we have had a lot of inflation fears. Now we're starting to see those inflation fears cool. We saw Apple run. We saw Microsoft run. Then we saw crypto start coming back a little bit. Now some of the SPACs are coming back a little bit. Are we going to see this rotation, this broader rotation in the market of just everything rallying into the end of the year?
Well, I wish that was true. I would like that outcome. I wish I knew what was going to happen, but I don't. I think markets are expensive. So earnings have to keep going up to justify the markets. And earnings have more than justified valuations from this quarter. I think the current quarter looks very strong. I expected more weakness because of Delta and more behavioral change, but you do not see that if you go outside. If you go out on last Saturday night, it was packed beyond belief everywhere. Yeah. Everywhere.
I was in Vegas, I know.
Oh, were you in Vegas? So Vegas is still packed. Sick. Yeah, I thought I saw that this morning. You were worried you got the Vegas COVID, and it's going around. So hopefully you don't look like you have the COVID yet. So
I hope not. I've been tested 4 times and I'm tired of getting tested. It's the more negative I am.
But see, it takes 4 days to come on.
Well, I also started having symptoms after I came back from New York, which was the weekend before. So it's just like the symptoms have been nominal the first week, and then they got a lot worse like 3 days ago to where I can't even wake up anymore. It's just bad. So
can you smell stuff?
Yeah, I can smell and
Then you're
taste.
fine.
But the thing is, every time I get a negative test, somebody's like, "We'll just test again tomorrow." And I'm tired of testing, dude. Like, I wish it would just say,
I've got
you have
these
COVID.
antigen tests at my house. I just pop these things in my nose whenever. I don't even think about it anymore.
I should do that.
My kids are doing it every week for school. We're doing it here at the office.
Do you mandate vaccines for your workers?
We didn't have to mandate it. They all did it.
Oh, okay.
It turned out that I had smarter workers than I thought.
So would you?
So what I said is, I highly encourage them to do this as rapidly as possible. This was months ago, but I said if everybody does this, we'll have a party every month and we won't have to wear masks in the office. And so they all went and did it. And so we have parties every month and we don't have to wear masks. Now we're back to wearing masks in the office. But
okay. You handing out the N95s or the Chinese KN95s?
Whatever people want. I mean,
okay.
I'm not. So here's my thing about Corona. I got to live my life. I can't run around hiding from a vaccine. I mean, hiding from a virus. I'm vaccinated. I'm not going to die. Everybody here is vaccinated. I'm not going to die. I'm going to hug my friends. I'm going to go outside. I'm not going to eat in an indoor restaurant right now. I'm not going to go to a concert. No.
Wow. See, when I went to New York,
so many outdoor restaurants where it's beautiful out. Why even eat in an indoor restaurant? Why? You don't have to, but I can tell you where people are getting Corona, and everybody I know who's gotten Corona recently has gotten it is at a party or a bar.
Yeah. Inside.
Yeah, inside.
Sure.
Some outside, but mostly inside, and mostly close contact with strangers. And so, like, I'm going to go play poker with my friends. They're all vaccinated, and we're going to go play. I'm not going to, like, be scared of them. Like, I'm living my life. Like, if I get COVID from my friends, like, that's my fate, or my family members. But, like, if I get COVID, getting a beer at some shitty bar, it's not worth it to me. It's just not worth it, you know? So I think it's harder for young people, and a lot of young people are getting COVID right now, and that's who's really bearing the brunt of it this round, is the young people who aren't vaccinated, who think they're invincible, and they're going out and they're having a great time, which I think is great, but the problem is they're getting COVID. But a venue that I work with in Venice just recently, it's a music venue for young people. It's mandated now. You can't go in without a vaccination. The artists don't want to play, as I was saying. They don't want to play anymore in unvaccinated rooms because they're scared that they're going to get sick. It turns out that artists are really germ phobic. I didn't really realize this until I had my music company, and when we've been operating with COVID for 2 years now. But artists are germ phobic. They don't want to get COVID. You know what I mean? Like, so this is going to be a tougher time for the social set unless you have an outdoor environment. So
what about, see, when I was in New York, I went to New York for a personal issue and then I had a few extra days. But what I noticed was in those few extra days where I was sort of exploring New York, people would actually take Photoshop vaccine cards, and they didn't actually have a vaccine, and they would basically just lie their way in to venues. Isn't that a problem? I mean, do you think there'll be a more like a vaccine passport app or something like that that's more verifiable?
It's going to be a real problem when they get COVID and they're dead. You know, who are they fooling?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. See, the way COVID works is it doesn't really care about your politics or your lies. It floats in the air. And if you're unlucky and you're around somebody who has it, okay, two things happen. You either get COVID or you don't. If you're vaccinated, you have at least a 50% chance that you won't get it at all. Okay. If you're unvaccinated, you have 100% chance of getting it. Okay. Delta is just that transmissible. If you're around it, you're going to get it if you're unvaccinated. So just the fact that you can cut your odds of getting COVID by 50% by getting a shot that's totally harmless, no brainer. So if you're running around faking it, you're going to get COVID. And then what happens is then you go home and get your family or your friends COVID. So do you want to be the selfish a-hole who gave all your friends COVID? Because I'll tell you, that's what's happening. with the young people.
Wow.
Is that young people are telling me they got COVID. Where did they get COVID? At their friend's party. Who gave it to you? Your unvaccinated friend. How do you feel about that unvaccinated friend now that you've been sick for 3 weeks?
Wow.
I hate him. What an a-hole. What an a-hole. Now think about what kind of a-hole is unvaccinated, goes to a party and gets all their friends sick and could kill some of them.
Wow.
So the young people have to start thinking smarter, not about how selfish they can be because they want to go to a bar, but they can get their friends and their best friends and their family sick and hospitalized, you know? It's like, why would you be so callous? So that's my thing for young people. Young people, you can be dumb and still get a vaccine. It's not that hard to figure this out. But making a fake card just to get into a bar, it's like, I'm going to fool the minefield that I really can walk through minefields, you know? And it's like, well, you're going to fool the minefield until you take that wrong step.
Oh, wow.
But then you blow up, you know?
Jeez. So there's a lot of talk about how in the United Kingdom, we had this surge of Delta cases. They have about 88% of their adult population with one shot, which is around 20 points more than what we have. And their surge has subsided. We are just now maybe a month behind the United Kingdom, and expectations are, hey, maybe the surge in the US will just fall too. What's your take?
The United States is very different than England. England is an island, and it's much less populated island. And so the amount of people, so they're almost at herd immunity, or they're at herd immunity, because I think they were saying 95% of people in England have either been vaccinated or had COVID. So basically, this is what's going to happen in America. At a certain point, 95% of our country will have either gotten COVID recently or vaccinated. It's one or the other. Okay. So everybody who's not vaccinated right now can make a choice. You're either going to get COVID or you're going to get vaccinated. That's what's going to happen. Okay. And that's what's happened in England. Now, unfortunately, just in California alone, I think I read that in LA alone, there's 3 million people who aren't vaccinated. Just in LA. Just Los Angeles. And this is one of the most vaccinated areas. Okay. Then you go to Mississippi, and 20% of people are vaccinated, or 30%. Who knows? Most people just aren't vaccinated. Okay. And now their hospitals are being overflowed. And you think it was bad in winter, it's going to be twice as bad in a month. So everybody's going to get COVID right now. So we're still in the upward part of the slope. And that's why this can get super gnarly on the short term, because you're either going to get COVID or you're going to get vaccinated. And that's how COVID ends. COVID ends when everybody in the world is either vaccinated or got COVID, and it becomes just a flu. Okay. And so we're far from that ending right now. And so the question is, how steep does the curve go up before it goes down?
What's
Maybe
your
not
response?
how fast, but how many will die?
What's your response to here? I just put up a question. What's your response to somebody who says they're stubborn because they feel that it's actually dumb to take a vaccine that's not FDA approved? Well, what's your response to somebody who says that?
Don't tell me you haven't done drugs in your entire life. Don't tell me you haven't put a substance into your body that you had no idea what it was. It was probably 1,000 times worse for you. Okay. McDonald's is 1,000 times worse for you than the vaccine. Okay. So all this FDA approval bullshit, like you need the FDA to approve anything. The FDA approved cigarettes, didn't they, or something? Like you can go buy cigarettes that kill you, and people smoke every day, all day. Okay. So we have shown unequivocally that this is the safest vaccine rollout in the history of man and woman. Okay. So like billions of people are going to take this vaccine, and we've literally seen the smallest side effects on the fewest people. Now, I make this argument all the time. If you went to America and you took 100 million Americans and you said, today, every single person's going to drink a glass of milk, every one of you 100 million, how many would die? Because people would die. There's people who are lactose intolerant. There's people with all kinds of problems. Somebody might choke on the milk and die. But if I give 100 million Americans milk, some are going to die. More people will die from drinking milk, a glass of milk, than from mRNA technology. So think about this for 1 minute. Literally, like, we've tracked everybody that's gotten these shots. Nobody's died. Nobody. People aren't dying from the shots. People aren't having their arms fall off. People aren't having their hearts explode. People aren't having anything. It's like Tesla. If anything goes wrong, if you trip after, it's like my wife, she got the vaccine. She didn't really want to get the vaccine. And then she finally got it because we were going to Disneyland. And so after she got the second shot, she was like, my knee hurts, and I was like, oh, that's a new side effect, like knee pain. And she's like, no, I swear there's nothing wrong with my knee. And I go, didn't you go jogging yesterday? Like maybe it was your jog, your shoes or something. And she's like, no. So she goes to the doctor the next week, and she's like, my knee hurts. I think it's because of the vaccine. And the doctor's like, you twisted your knee.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah. So
interesting.
So like, I think people are scared. Okay. So let's go backwards. I was nervous doing the vaccine when I did it. Okay. And I got it early. I got it as soon as I could. But I was thinking the same thing that all of you are thinking. Who knows? Could be bad for me, could be good for me. Okay.
Yeah.
But I studied the science. I talked to the doctors that I trust who all took the vaccine, one of which is an anti-vax doctor. Okay. So my kids go to the biggest anti-vax doctor probably in the country. And not only has he taken the vaccine, he's already gotten his booster. So I figure if the biggest anti-vax doctor in the country is doing this, why wouldn't you? So I did it. I took it myself.
Do you think the government? Do you think the government should mandate, or do you think it's just educate and let people decide?
In my heart, I wish the education would work.
Right.
Like in my heart. But that's not how it worked in history. Didn't work that way with smallpox. Didn't work that way with polio. And by the way, my kid just had to get 5 vaccines to go to LA Unified for polio and smallpox and all the diseases we've eradicated. So I said, it's so ironic that I have to take my 5-year-old down to take 5 vaccines in one day because my anti-vax doctor didn't do it, and what was his side effect? Nothing. He was like limping, like I was like, Jimmy, come on, like fake limper, and then I like put a piece of chocolate and he ran for it. And I was like, see, your leg's fine. And I'm like, vaccines are a part of our lives. Like, I don't understand why we've politicized this and make this scary and make this whole thing. We give them to our kids. We give them a bunch of vaccines for diseases that don't even exist. So now I've come up with all these mental reasons because I'm scared. Just do it. Just do it. It's fine. Nothing's going to happen to you, except you won't die from COVID. That's the upside.
Wow. Okay. So,
it's
and
okay
where
to
do you
be scared? Like, I don't think it's a bad thing that people are scared. We all have fears. Like, I have a little bit of a fear of heights. I just do. And I force myself when I'm hiking to overcome it sometimes. The other day I had to do this because I tried to summit the Santa Monica Mountains the other day, and I got up to the top and it was pretty hairy and I was by myself and I had no water. And I was like, I don't, that movie 127 where you have to cut his arm off. I start thinking like I'm going to slip and fall and like I'll have to cut my arm off to survive. Like I should have brought my wife or water or something. And I started looking down and I'm like, damn, I'm high up here. If I get stuck up here, and it's like, this is your head. I'm not going to fall. Just summit the thing and come down. You know what I mean? And so we all have to overcome fears. And if you're scared of the vaccine, I think it's legitimate. Overcome your fear. Just go do it. It's nothing. You'll be fine.
So probably the last question I have for you is, and then we can, anything else you want to add, of course, but I want to ask you about cash and real estate. Where do you stand on those two things right now?
Well, real estate's a broad asset class.
Yeah. So actual ownership, like physical.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying like, I got a call from my client who owns a lot of office buildings. And he is depressed.
Oh, well, yeah. Good point.
This Delta thing is a nightmare for office ownership. Everybody expected everybody back in the offices now. Everybody was supposed to be coming back to the offices in September. And now that's all delayed. and leases are coming up and people aren't renewing. It's really tough time for retail commercial real estate. I would not want to be in that business. Rents will only go down for a long time in offices, and the work from home life is now permanent. So if COVID was a shorter experience, I think we would have gotten back to our old lives pretty quickly. But because it's not, behavior is permanently changed now. Behavior is permanently changed. Businesses are permanently changed. Zoom is a way of life, and so really hard time to be in commercial, retail, real estate. Now you've got other parts of real estate like residential and home building, which I'm heavily invested in. I think home building is a great business right now.
And you think it'll stay?
Yeah, like your old business. Like if you buy a house right now and you fix it up and you resell it, you're going to make money.
Yes.
The hard part is buying the house.
Well, yes.
But like assuming you found some inventory and you bought it and you fixed it up and you put it back for sale, that would be a good business to be
like Open Door just smashed because of
not
that.
Open Door, because Open Door somehow loses money selling so many houses. And I love Open Door, and I think it's exactly where I think real estate's going to be. But nobody can explain to me how they lose $145 million selling all those houses like in a market that's on fire. Like, how did they lose money? So that's what I'm trying to figure out with Open Door.
Ads.
Like, how did you lose money?
Yeah, it's all ads, man. These people, they're spending so much money trying to get those deals. I think they're just blowing all their money on advertisements. It's kind of sucky business,
right? Because they don't have the traditional agent commission. So how do they attract people? And all the MLS people aren't going to help them. So it's like, this was the problem Redfin had too, where it's like, if you go up against the agents, it's real hard. And I've looked at Zillow and Open because I love disruption in real estate. And in some ways, I like the Zillow model better because it's more agent friendly and they make money off the agents and they drive a lot of leads to the agents. Yeah. And it's a wonderful platform, but they're selling house division, same problem. They just lose money and they're charging 8% commissions. Right. So it costs you more to sell your house through Zillow than not. So they still haven't gotten this business model down.
No.
So that's my thing about that. But I think
you're going to start
real estate right now, like rental real estate or homes is a great business. And I own home builders like Lennar, and I'm heavily invested in Lennar. Building homes is a almost guaranteed win right now.
But not in GK, right? Oh, no, it is in GK.
No, in GK.
Yeah, 3.41%. You're right.
IIPR, which has been on the real estate's the strongest sector in our GK fund right now.
Wow.
It's killing it. I got Blackstone, which owns
right.
tons of real estate and private equity. I've got PLD, Prologis, which is logistics centers like Amazon stuff. Love that business. Logistics is amazing. Same with Blackstone's really heavily levered to logistics. And then I've got IIPR, which is on fire, just a top performer in the fund. And this is all cannabis real estate, high, use cannabis facilities. And then I've got CCI, which is cell phone towers. That's a wonderful business with 5G and everything. So all those positions I love right now. And real estate is about a 13 or 14% allocation in our fund. So it's right behind climate and technology as far as an allocation. So it's one of the biggest allocations.
Yeah.
So I like all real estate other than commercial and retail. I'm not a house flipper. I don't really believe in house flipping because I think it's too hard. But I think development has a lot of money. And that's why we're in Lennar. Build houses, make money.
So the GKRE fund is not coming anytime soon.
The whole purpose of our fund, in a way, was going back to the tax advantage thing. If I had separate, so there are already companies like ARC and Global X that have separate funds for each theme.
Yeah.
But the problem that I had was I bought Global X this theme, and then I want to switch to another theme, and it cost me taxes. You see what I'm saying? So the purpose of our fund was to have all those themes in one. So when we make these allocation changes, there isn't a cost to our clients. Because
that's interesting.
Do this with other companies. We're the only actively traded ETF that does this in the whole world.
So you're saying if you go from like an ARC space innovation to an ARC fintech, you're getting screwed because you're realizing taxes.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just are in like a GK and all of a sudden you're like, I'm done with real estate for right now, I'm going into fintech, no tax implication potentially.
That's right.
That's crazy.
That's right. And that was why I started the fund, because we use ARC, we use Global X, we use Roundhill, we use all these sector funds. And then I would use each sector to build my portfolios. But then when I wanted to move out of a sector, there was taxes, and if I liked a new sector, there was tax.
Yeah.
So I was like, why don't we just build a multi-thematic fund? So when we make these changes, it doesn't cost me so much money. So like this month, we moved out of some of our video game positions sector into our healthcare sector. And in theory, there's no tax consequence to do this, Do
you think it's possible that Kathy at ARC purposely has these multiple funds so that when any one of these individual sectors runs, because the sectors seem to run in cycles, right? It's like, oh, now real estate's doing well. Now it's the fintech's doing well. That because she's all in those specific sectors, it's like, oh my gosh, that index fund just looks, or ETF, not index fund, that ETF just looks like it's the top of the game because it's all in on that sector. And and through that attracts more clients through the marketing benefit of that.
That's correct. So the ETF business that has done very well recently are these thematic ETFs like ARC and Global X. And the bet with those is that if I do 10 or 5 funds with different themes that are highly concentrated in those themes, if one of those themes takes off and I earn very high rates of return, I'm going to attract $20 billion in assets. And that's exactly what's happened with ARC. And so when you look at ARC Innovation, it's one of the highest risk investments you can make. See, I don't think people assign a risk reward ratio to ARC. So the reward has been great, but the risk is equally high. And I think that's the difference, is like ARC is down on the year. So the ARC is trailing the S&P by 20% this year. 20%.
Yeah.
Okay. Now that's a lot. Now you can say, well, last year she beat it by so much, but most of the money that came into ARC came in at the top.
Yep.
Okay. So if you look at actual client returns versus fund returns, it's always very different with funds, because what happens is when you're doing really well, very few people own the fund. And then when you kill it, everybody buys your fund and then it goes down. And that's where she is right now. And so like when ARC will do better again is when tech does better again. So when tech does better again, she'll outperform. But when you say, oh, she's made 30% a year over the last 6 years, you're like, yeah, in Tesla, like she's got a few positions that have done phenomenally well. So you can make that decision. Like I could make this decision as the ETF. I can say, I'm going to put the 55% of my assets in my top 10 pick. It's kind of like ARC. And if I'm right, I'm a hero and I'll make tons of money. And if I'm wrong, I'll start another ETF, and I'll pick a different thing. And then I'll start another ETF with a big, until I hit the right ETF, until I make it big. So the cannabis guys last year made 100%. So all these cannabis ETFs, oh, look at my returns. He's like, well, that was last year. Now I'm getting in now. I haven't made any money, right? And so like the sector funds all perform at different times.
Sure.
And so that's the sector fund game. And so the idea when I started my fund was like, well, if I put the 9 sectors in one, then they'll offset each other and you'll actually get a consistent return, which is what we do at my firm. And so by investing in 9 separate sectors that complement each other, that are different, you won't have the volatility in our fund that you'll have in ARC. And that's exactly why I've been tracking this so closely, us compared to ARC, us compared to Buzz, us compared to S&P or other indexes, is because I'm very curious to how we perform relative to these things. Like from a volatility perspective, we have much less volatility than ARC, much less. Now, if ARC outperforms us in pure return, that wouldn't surprise me either, because she's highly concentrated in a few tech stocks. So if tech does well over the next year or two, she's going to have phenomenal performance and we'll have really good performance. But if tech does okay, she's going to have okay performance and we might have much better performance because we're in real estate. So
yeah, that's interesting.
So we own real estate, we own pet companies, so our diversification should give us more consistency over time. And that's the idea of it. That's the goal. And that's what's happened in my accounts over time. So when sectors fall out of favor, I have other sectors to offset it. That's the idea.
It's worth just showing. Here's ARK versus the S&P, for example, and you could see it's just that the yellow line here is the S&P. Here's that sort of steady eddy growth, because even though you have that rotation within, you don't have the madness of these swings that you're talking about here.
Exactly. So like ARK is a great fund to dollar cost average into, like invest monthly, because it has that volatility. But it's almost like when we buy ARK Innovation, I'm basically owning a slice of tech stocks. That's the way I look at it. You know, the one ARK fund we use actually at my firm is ARK F, the fintech fund, because it's just the perfect exposure for those. We like that exposure. But like the PE ratio of ARK Innovation or ARK Fintech is like 10,000. You know, like there's no PE ratio. Like Kathy Wood does not believe in earnings. None of her companies really have earnings. You know, it's like that whole concept is foreign at ARK. ARK is purely an intellectual firm where if they like what you're doing, they'll buy your stock, and they just don't care what the valuation is, and they don't care. And so I'm really curious to see over time how our performance compares over time, because some of our positions are very similar and some are very different. And what I think investors will find that both of us will do very well, but ours will be less volatile.
That's incredible. Wow, golly. Ross, what have we not talked about? I mean, short of me coming over for poker one day when I'm better.
Yeah, I'd love to play poker. You know, I just want to re-stress, you know, we've got an election, if you're in California, in a month. And I love our state, and I'm not leaving. And the politicians who have screwed up this state. And I'll give you an example, the squandered billions of the surpluses that are in California today, squandering billions of surpluses instead of putting this state in a better financial position. It's inexcusable the way Gavin Newsom is squandering the billions of surplus. And instead of creating tax breaks for everybody in California to make it a more attractive area, he continues to have high taxes. You mentioned the cannabis taxes is a perfect example. 2/3 of the cannabis industry is still illegal because of state taxes. State tax. And it's like, doesn't make sense. You could lower the tax and you'll make more money, actually, because more will be legally sold. Right. And so we have really regressive policies. And then secondly, the innovation and the opportunity that made California great. Silicon Valley, Southern California. It's dying off. It's moving. It's moving to other areas where innovation is encouraged. But if you go back to the late 60s and the early 70s, when so much innovation happened here in Northern California in particular, it was such an environment of innovation at the time. And if we don't have young people who get innovation, who get encouraging that, which then creates thousands of jobs. I mean, you think about companies like Apple and the thousands of jobs they've created in California, or companies, or even more recent companies like Snapchat, and how many thousands of jobs they've created here in LA. We need to foster innovation. And in this case, maybe in the crypto community, in video game community, technology community, they're all here. They're all here in Southern California. But we've got to create an environment where businesses can thrive. And we just haven't done that. And we've created an environment where the homeless thrive and the illegals thrive. And, you know, I'm all for solving homelessness, and I'm all for having legal immigration and a better system. But to create a system that only benefits the illegals and the homeless at the expense of everybody else makes no sense. It just makes no sense. It shouldn't cost the citizens of California so much because of the homeless problem when there's so much money to deal with it, and a bunch of inept politicians who can't force a bunch of people off the beachfront homes they've taken to the shelters where they have to follow rules. You know, it's like somebody has to do it. And in LA, we had the sheriff do it. Venice Boardwalk is clean now. The homeless aren't allowed to have their parties every day on the beach. And, you know, life goes on. And now the vendors and the business owners are getting back to business. And that's who we should be running our country for and our state for, is for the people who are working hard and paying taxes and trying to make a difference in a positive way and creating jobs. And And I get there's a part of society that needs lots of help, and we should provide that help. We have plenty of resources to do it, but to manage our state to the lowest common denominator has been a failure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No
thank
kidding.
you, Kevin. That's
Thank you for that.
that's my speech.
Why? Oh, thanks. Why do you think the Democratic Party isn't didn't pick a backup? Why wouldn't they have thrown in a backup? Like, hey, here's, I don't know, somebody else.
Well, this is why they don't like you. Because the plan was, this is Donald Trump trying to get rid of Gavin Newsom because they're enemies.
Right.
So the Democrats' whole argument is you vote no on the recall because you're just going to put a Republican in. Nobody in California wants a Republican governor. Nobody. When was the last one? Was it Reagan? You know, I mean, like, oh yeah, Schwarzenegger. He was a Republican. I don't consider him a Republican. He's such a Democrat. He's the worst Republican. You know, I like Schwarzenegger a lot. I'm a fan, big fan, you know, but it's all stretch to call him a Republican. He brought out the Conan sword. Did you see that video he made about Trump? I even had to bring out the Conan sword because the racists have taken over this country, that even Conan will come and fight Trump. I was like, come on, Schwarzenegger's the best. So nobody wants a Republican governor. So that's how the Democrats framed it. And then you roll in saying, I'm a Democrat, I'm conservative, and I'm smart, and I'm young, and I can get to people, and I can make a difference, and I got all these new ideas. And they're like, shit, this is not supposed to happen. Because if there's Democratic choices, people might take that choice. And that's why I'm voting for you.
Oh,
because
thanks,
I'm
Ross.
a Democrat. And John Falconer or John Cox and his drug bear and what's his name? Larry Elder, the worst. I mean, this guy's the worst. So Gavin Newsom's like, how do I lose to Larry Elder, right? Zero chance. But then meet Kevin comes along. And here's a guy with sensible ideas who's smart and young, and it's a nightmare for the Democrats. That's why they won't debate you. They won't give you legitimacy. They won't support you because they want this to be a Republican recall.
Wow.
I think there was even a lawsuit about using the term Republican recall.
Yes.
And it won. You can call it a Republican recall.
Yep.
And that's the strategy that Newsom's employed to win, and that might work for him.
Wow. That's incredible. Golly. Well, Ross, this was really exciting. I hope to do this again sometime. And anything else you want to add? I mean, I know people can invest in GK, which is your ETF, not sponsored, but shout out the company, man.
Yeah, I mean, you can invest in GK. It's pretty simple. You just buy it on your platform. But more importantly, if you're looking for financial advice, we work with people of all backgrounds. Contact my firm at gerberkawasaki.com. Having a financial advisor is much more valuable than just buying our stocks. You know, there's a lot to financial planning. So, you know, we've been on the show several times. We've got a lot of your viewers who are interested in financial help, and it's been a great experience and working with your viewers, you know, actually. And so thank you for having me on, but take steps to build your financial future. You know, the stock market's going to be great over the next 30 years. You know, when you think about the opportunity we have to make the world better, to solve climate, to solve corona, to solve, you know, the globalization issues we have, we need a new generation to step up and do that. And I think that's what you represent and what's happening. And it's a great time to be an investor. So get invested. We're happy to help you no matter what your asset level is at gerberkawasaki.com. And then lastly, I just want to thank you for having me on again as well. And I always really enjoy our conversations and your curiosity. I think you do this better than most of the mainstream television people who call you a YouTuber. You know, well, thank you. I brag. I'm like, kids, I'm going on YouTube today, and my kids think I'm cool. You know, they don't get it. They don't get it yet. But being on YouTube is cool. It's not lame. And I love YouTube, and I'm an investor in Google. But I really appreciate what you're doing in educating people about finance, bringing your channel the way you've brought a lot of great information to your viewers about investing in the stock market, especially starting in real estate, really, you know, building your profile as an investor in all assets. And then most importantly, you know, I tried to talk you out of running for governor, and you know, not because I didn't think you should, because I have a lot of distrust in the system, and as you've been learning how corrupt it is. But what I'm most proud of is that you followed through with it, but you've done so in a way that proves your desire to actually win the office, not just a publicity stunt. And I think a lot of people, you know, naturally would think this is just a publicity stunt. And I hope you inspire lots of young people to get involved with politics, because if we're going to make our world better, we can't just sit back on our couches and watch YouTube. We've got to go out and actually do it. And you put a lot of effort into it. So I'm super excited for the election. I think you win either way, because you've proven that a young person can go out there, make a lot of noise, do a lot of funny, crazy stuff, get attention, have great ideas, and get people to vote for them. Because you've started kind of at a high goal with like governor, you know, like I was kind of teasing you and I was like, you should start at like a city council, you know, and like work your way up to mayor of like some weird city. And then, you know, then you go for governor, you know, or state assembly or some shit, you know, but you're just going right for governor, you know. But I respect that tremendously, because you put an enormous amount of work, effort, love, and desire into this. And it inspires me. And so thank you for having me on, and good luck with everything. And I do think that if you're a California voter and you're dissatisfied, there's no question that you, Kevin Paffrath, is the best choice for governor in this state. And you'll only get 1 year to screw things up, okay? And then we can vote again. But boy, you might be surprised. Kevin might do a great job, and hopefully he'll make me his economic advisor if he's governor. And then you'll have some really great people working for the state.
Oh, that's awesome. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Ross. Gerber Kawasaki, appreciate it. Ross, stand by for one moment. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.